Hello, welcome to the Saroy channel. I'm so glad you've joined me this evening, and I've got a fabulous story for you, and you're really going to enjoy this. This is about the Kushtika, and it's stepped out of cryptozoology. There have been so many encounters in Alaska with this creature that is otherwise known as ottoman. And if you're interested in Bigfoot, you're definitely going to be interested in the Kushtika. And this is a story about that, and I think you're going to find it absolutely fascinating. I know I did. It's a very, very interesting story. But before we get started, make sure you subscribe to my channel, because I'll be over the moon if you do, and I think you will also, because you'll get so many amazing stories to listen to. And who doesn't need a good story before you go to bed? It's the best thing that you could ever do, is listen to a good story. Nothing beats that. So let's get started. The Kushtika. Dear Sarah, I'm writing to you to share with you my real-life monster story that happened where I live in Juneau in Alaska. I live in a world of magnificent beauty consisting of mountains, lake and tundra. I figured your listeners would be intrigued to hear my story, whether they believe it or not. I have to admit I would not blame your listeners if they did not believe me, because all these years later, I still sometimes wonder if it all was just a terrible dream. I figured your listeners have got to be more open-minded than the average person in the population because they believe in Bigfoot. And like them, I do too. I live in the Alaska Triangle, considered to be the Bermuda Triangle of the North, only it's far more deadly. It is also often known as the Devil's Graveyard and consists of Juneau, Yakutat, Anchorage and Barrow, otherwise known as Zone 10. So many conspiracy theories abound about the aeroplanes and people that literally vanish off the face of the earth, never to be found again. Here in the Alaskan Triangle, 500 to 1,000 of these people vanish every year. Imagine that. As you can imagine, local legends are rife as to the true culprit of all these disappearances, which are often put down to strange green men, skinwalkers, aliens, Bigfoots, and the Kushtika, otherwise known as ottoman. Others believe that the ley lines in Alaska can cause people to hallucinate, so they get lost or even eaten. My belief is that Bigfoot and ottoman have a lot to do with the missing people that disappear every year in Alaska. I believe this emphatically because I had a personal experience with the ottoman that will give your listeners goosebumps, because it is so chilling. The ottoman is said to be 600 pounds and is half otter and half man. He is known as the Kushtika, and I promise you, he is as real as Bigfoot. There is something supernatural about this creature, as he is said to be able to shapeshift. When I was growing up, my grandmother told me a true story about the Kushtika. She said that a young girl and boy were playing by Lake Aukrey in Juneau when the little girl started to cry because she saw her favorite doll floating in the water. She went to grab her doll, and the next thing she knew was this huge humanoid creature that looked like a gargantuan otter covered with dense, smooth brown hair, pulled the young girl under the water, and she was never to be seen again. The boy recounted the story to his mother, and there was no sign of that plastic doll that he swore he had seen in the water. The boy was so sad about his sister's disappearance that the next day, without his parents knowing, he went to look for his sister and was seen by a bystander going into the water. He was also never seen again. My bet is that he saw an image of his sister struggling in the water and he went to rescue her. You see that the ottoman knows how to play games with your mind, and he can shapeshift into anything. My grandmother warned me to be careful about any lake in the Alaskan Triangle. I never took her that seriously, as the story she told me seemed way too far-fetched, until it happened to me exactly how my grandmother had described. It was in the summer of 1982, and I was walking around Lake Aukrey, and I suddenly saw my cat Misty fighting for her life in the water. Misty had been missing for 6 whole months, and now she was there in this lake. It seemed like a miracle to me, and I immediately ran to her aid. The next thing I knew was that these two large hairy arms pulled me under the water. I opened my eyes to see this huge mammoth otter, humanoid-like creature holding me down with a brute force. I have been a free diver for many years, and so I have learned to hold my breath under the water for a very long time. And that is what I did. I did this while I fought off this creature with all my might, but he was way too strong for me. The next thing I knew was that two very strong Alaskan locals were pulling me out of the water. "We saw you trying to save your cat," they told me, "and then something pulled you down." I knew I was lucky to be alive, and I also knew that the Misty I had seen in the water was not my cat at all that had gone missing. The one thing that amazes me about the Ottoman is that he is able to exploit our weaknesses. He knew that I would go in the water to save my cat. Yet how did he even know about Misty? How did he know about the little girl's doll? All I can say is this creature is a master of deceptive depravity, and he has supernatural powers, even though he is as physically real as you and I. In Alaska, there are many crazy, unexplainable stories from this part of the world. Many may be of interest to your listeners, and I can get people here in Alaska to send you some of their weird and wonderful stories, and I will. As for Bigfoot, I know he's real. I have never seen him myself, but I know of many people who have interesting tales to send you about the hairy man, and you want to hear them, you really do. Until next time, good night and goodbye.